recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends 7-0-0.
And the Select Board?
Select Board recommends 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 2? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 2, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 2 passes at 7-17. Article 3, outstanding bills. Mr. Carrero.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 3 is the appropriation of $10,110.98 from surplus revenue to pay prior outstanding invoices, and these invoices were not received prior to June 30th.
Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving this for me?
Move that the article be accepted.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends 7-0-0.
And Select Board?
Select Board 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 3? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 3, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 3 passes at 7:18 p.m. Article 4, appropriation to the stabilization fund. Mr. Carrero.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 4 is the appropriation to the Town Stabilization Fund from surplus revenue pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B. The amount of $800,000 represents the contribution of monies maintaining the town at the 10% of operating revenues as defined by the town's financial policies. The current balance in the stabilization fund is $10,442,145.09.
Thank you. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving that for me?
Move that the meeting approve this article.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends 7-0-0.
And the Select Board.
Select Board 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 4? Are we ready to vote? Do you have a question? Okay, you're ready to vote. I love that you're excited about voting. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss a question. All in favor, please raise your cards. Opposed, please raise your cards. Article 4 passes at 7:19. Article 5. Acceptance of Capital Planning Committee report and funding of fiscal year 2024 capital plan. Mr. Carrero.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 5 funds the annual CPC, the Capital Committee's capital requests. Article 5 includes the items the Capital Planning Committee has voted on is now being recommended to be funded from various funding sources, totaling $1,611,975.
Okay. Mr. Tattlebaum, are you moving that for me?
Move that the meeting approve this article.
And do I have a second? Second, I'll second it. Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends 7-0-0.
And Select Board.
Select Board approves 5-0.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is what I normally do with these types of articles. I'm going to read the totals for each section, and if you have a question, if you'd call out a hold, we'll then go back and have your question answered and then vote on the article in its entirety, okay? Town government total, $49,000. Management information systems, $57,975. Town clerk, $25,000. DPW Administration Division, $35,000. DPW Highway Division, $1,220,500. Hold. DPW Construction Division, $85,500. DPW Water Enterprise Fund, $50,000. Hold on the Water Enterprise Fund. Parks and Recreation, $40,000. Conservation, $49,000. Okay, let's go back and clear the holds. Who had a question on the DPW Highway Division? Could we get a microphone over here, please, to this gentleman?
Peter Howland, Precinct 1. Yeah, I'm just wondering, $1 million for road maintenance and improvements, and there's real no breakdown or information on that. Can we have some clarification on what projects the town may have in mind for that?
Sure, let me get you an answer for that. Sure, come on down, Mr. Barber.
Good evening, Tim Barber, DPW Director. To answer your question, typically we request $1 million in road maintenance to supplement all of our road maintenance work throughout the year. We also get some money through the state Chapter 90 fund. It's not project specific. We use it for road patching, sidewalk maintenance, and we do use it for road reconstruction and paving through our pavement maintenance program every year.
Thank you. Any further questions on DPW Highway Division? Look, we need to get a microphone so that they can hear you on TV, please. Could we get a microphone down here to the gentleman in the front row?
Arthur Gerard, Precinct 2. I'd just like to know the thought process involved. I'm concerned about Cross Road and what a mess it is, and hopefully you can move it up on your priority list.
We use a pavement maintenance program software, and we've rated all our roads with a road service rating. And we use that to prioritize the road work that we do every year. Beyond that, we follow a lot of the utility work like Eversource. As they work throughout the town, we go back and maintain those roads as well. The Crossroad section from Route 6 to Fonscona Road, I believe you're talking about, is currently being designed as a phased project through the Mass DOT Transportation Improvement Program, where we fund the design for the project, and then Mass DOT will take the project and fund the improvements. So that we will use road maintenance funds to try to patch that road and keep it going until this project gets approved and awarded to a contractor and gets constructed.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Nunes?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. John Nunes, Precinct 6, member of the Dartmouth School Committee. It's not a question of the DPW, but I'm looking for a little bit of clarification from Town Council, if possible. We being the school department, Mr. Kiley and myself, some Finance Committee members, CIP members, had meeting with Mr. Carrero and Mr. McGinnis a few weeks ago and came up with some funding for the school department articles, and one of them was using the full-day kindergarten, and town council has said that that is illegal, and I'm just trying to figure out why.
So actually, I made that decision. I did consult with town council. It is beyond the scope of this article because a warrant is designed to notify the community of the topics that are going to be discussed at town meeting. It's part of the Mass General Law, and it's also part of our charter. And this capital improvement plan report does not contemplate anything related to the schools, so any person who was looking at it would not expect the schools to be talked about. So it's beyond the scope of this warrant article, and that's why I did not allow the amendment related to the schools. Anything else with regard to DPW Highway Division? Could we please get a microphone back there?
Kathy Del Sordo, Precinct 5. Does this include the Tucker Road, Route 6, Hathaway Road reconstruction?
It does not. That is also, the Route 6 construction is also funded through Mass DOT and the Transportation Improvement Program.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're clearing that hold. We're moving on to DPW Water Enterprise Fund. On the aisle here, could we please have our microphone?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The question I have
Could you please give me your name and
Oh, yeah,
precinct
I'm
for the
sorry.
record? Thank you.
Jim Costa, Precinct 4.
Thank you, Mr. Costa.
The question I have, the questions I have is the town drinking water is come up from wells underground. And I'm just wondering what an odor control pump would be for that. Which odors are we trying to control? And what is a intralet system?
An intralet system is a laboratory sample kit to allow our lab technicians to test samples in our own lab rather than transporting samples to a laboratory in Rhode Island. And
Typically, what chemicals are you looking for, or what are you testing for?
that we're testing for enterococci.
Do you have a follow-up question, Mr. Costa?
What are the other odor controls?
The odor control system is actually for the wastewater pollution control facility, where we have a motor that failed and we need to replace it.
Thank you. Anything else for DPW Water Enterprise Fund? Right there, Mr. Dabney, right there, please.
Fred Dabney, Precinct 5. Are all of the capital project requests which the department has requested accurately reflected in the warrant before us?
I'm sorry?
Are all the capital project requests which the department has requested accurately reflected in the warrant before us?
No, they are not.
And what is the percentage that's missing?
Probably about 60%.
60%? Is there any particular reason that we haven't got more of these on the warrant?
The decisions were made at the administrative level on which articles to fund.
Any other questions with regard to DPW Water Enterprise Fund? The gentleman right there, please.
Kevin Murphy, Precinct 8. Could someone elaborate on that, please, what that 60% could possibly represent?
So I know this, I probably, do you want to speak to it, or do you want someone from the capital improvement? Okay. Go ahead. I'll turn it over to Mr. McGinnis to answer then.
It's like muted on Zoom, sorry. This is generally how we fund capital in the fall. Generally, the majority of capital funding is approved in the spring, and then we approve a certain amount in the fall. So this is in line with what's been historically approved. There's a number of items that are requested by departments that are evaluated by the Capital Planning Committee and the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and myself and the Finance Director, and this is what is presented generally annually.
Question on the aisle there.
But my question on the DPW Water Enterprise Fund is this is not coming out of taxpayers' money. This is coming out of my money when I pay my water bill. So why aren't they getting what they need to provide us drinking water and a decent sewer system?
Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Carrero?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So every year we, as you know, in the general fund, we certify free cash. Well, in the enterprise funds, we certify what's called retained earnings, which is pretty much the same thing as free cash in the general fund. And you know, in fiscal 23, we had issues where, if you remember, on the water side, we were paying New Bedford for high volumes of water because of the wells that were shut down. So in fiscal 24. We still have good revenue source. We've actually got a report from our town accountant in the last quarter that revenues are pretty decent for the enterprise funds. So we have to be really careful because when you're looking at revenues that come out of the retained earnings, they're generally funded by the rates. So as we try to be conservative on how we establish those rates, we have to make sure on the same side that we're not spending everything down on the retained earnings, because that will help us with long-term capital projects that we're looking at funding in the future, and minimizing those rate increases going forward. So in essence, we're trying to balance everything and not have sticker shock, if you will, on people's water and sewer bills.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 5? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 5, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 5 passes at 732. Article 6. appropriation to the stabilization fund for collective bargaining and non-union agreements. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, this would appropriate $405,000 from the tax levy for the purposes of supplementing the stabilization fund for collective bargaining contracts and non-union personnel agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Tettelbaum. Are you moving that?
Move that this article be approved.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Finance Committee recommends 700.
and Select Board recommendation.
Select Board 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 6? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 6, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 6 passes at 733. Article 7, appropriation for collective bargaining agreements. And that is Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, thank you. This would vote to implement the FY 23 through 25 collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Dartmouth Town Employees Association by appropriating the sum of $549,702.43 to include retro payments as well. And the detail is in the article, and I can read that if you would like, but I think it's...
Whatever you choose. We can wait for questions, or you may read it.
The total is $549,702.43.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tattelbaum, you're moving this?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Finance Committee recommends 700.
and Select Board.
Select Board approved 5-0.
Great. Any discussion on Article 7 that's before us? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 7, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 7 passes at 734. Article 8, appropriation for the use of stabilization fund for opioid legal settlement receipts. Mr. McGinnis.
Yes, this would appropriate the sum of $85,000 from the opioid legal settlements stabilization fund for the fiscal year FY24 that we're in. This was the fund that was created at the last town meeting from the opioid settlement receipts that the state had agreed to with the pharmaceutical companies. This money is restricted in its use by the state for a number of uses related to opioid treatment and prevention, and there's an internal team that would present uses of the funds to the Select Board for final approval, but town meeting needs to approve the allocation of $85,000 out of the stabilization fund.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Mr. Tattelbaum.
Move that the meeting approve this article.
Thank you. In a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
Finance Committee recommends 700.
and Select Board recommendation.
Select Board approves 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 8? Are we ready to vote? This requires a 2/3 vote for passage, okay? All in favor of Article 8, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 8 passes at 735. Article 9, street acceptance, Kyle Jacob Road. Mr. Barber.
Welcome back.
Do you want to summarize what this is for us?
Okay, Article 9, street acceptance for Kyle Jacob Road, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 82, Section 23, to accept as a public way Kyle Jacob Road as laid out by a vote of the Select Board on September 11, 2023. And further, to authorize the Select Board to obtain by gift, purchase, or eminent domain one or more easements over said Kyle Jacob Road for all public way purposes, including without limitation the right to construct, improve, repair, maintain, use, and allow the public in any vehicle to use a right-of-way to pass and repass, and the right to construct, improve, repair, maintain, and use water mains, sewer mains, and surface and subsurface stormwater drains through, along, and under the said right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Tattelbaum, you'd like to move this?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
Okay, and Finance Committee
Recommends 700.
and Select Board?
Select Board approves 5-0.
Any discussion on the street acceptance before us for Kyle Jacob Road? Question right here, please. Could we get this microphone there, please?
Andrea Langhauser, Precinct 7. Same question for all 4 roads. When were they constructed and what is the condition of the road at acceptance?
So if you have that, did you want to show?
Don't have the date of construction of any of the roads of final construction. The Kyle Jacob Road was constructed a few years prior to Magnolia, Sunflower, and Ivy Way. It was completed per town specifications. The road is in good shape, and we did write a letter to the planning board with the completion of the subdivision for acceptance. The 3 roads in the enclave of Fons Corner Road were built at a later date, and all the roads are in good shape. We visited the subdivision recently. Same thing, the roads were completed with the specifications of the town and the Department of Public Works to maintain the roads.
Any further discussion on Article 9 before us related to Kyle Jacob Road? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 9, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 9 passes at 738. Article 10, street acceptance Magnolia Lane. So you can read the piece that Mr. Barber was reading. So I think we're going to ask for Mr. Tattelbaum just to move this article.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends 700.
And the Select Board, please.
Select Board 5-0. Approved.
Okay. Article 10 before us is Magnolia, for street acceptance of Magnolia Lane. Any discussion on Article 10? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 10, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 10 passes at 739. Article 11, street acceptance, Ivy Way. Again, I'm going to ask Mr. Tattelbaum to move this.
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And a second. Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation
700.
and Select Board recommendation.
Approves 5-0.
Any discussion with regard to Article 11, street acceptance of Ivy Way? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 11, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 11 passes at 7:40 p.m. Article 12, street acceptance of Sunflower Drive. Mr. Tattelbaum, would you move that for me?
Move that the meeting accept this article.
And do I have a second? Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation?
700.
Select Board recommendation.
Select Board approves 5-0.
Any discussion on Article 11, Article 12, street acceptance Sunflower Drive? Are we ready to vote on Article 12? All in favor of Article 12, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 12 passes at 7:40 p.m. Article 13, zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. O'Grady, come on down.
Hello, everyone. I am the Planning Director, Christine O'Grady.
Ms.
and
O'Grady, could you please turn on your microphone? I'm not sure it's on, or we can't hear
I am
you.
the Planning Director, Christine O'Grady, and I am here on behalf of the Planning Board to present the zoning bylaw amendment. As described in the warrant, this amendment is to see if the town will vote to delete Article 5 of the zoning bylaw dealing with definitions and accessory uses in its entirety and replace it with a new Article 5 entitled Use Table and Definitions as provided in the warrant. Accessory uses and their definitions will still be included in Article 5. They will be under Section 5.3 of the article. The main purpose of Article 5 revision came about because of requests from property owners, developers, and town officials for a use table to determine the uses and their respective permitting requirements within a given zoning district. Revisions to Article 5 also include major changes to definition section, minor changes to major changes of the definition section of the bylaw. Definitions from other sections of the existing zoning bylaw were added to this article, along with the inclusion of a few minor missing definitions for consistency with the use table. Inclusion of these definitions in this article will not result in any changes to a district, district locations, size requirements, or allowed uses. The graphic projected to my right provides an overview of the use table, which is color-coded to match the existing zoning map. The zoning districts as depicted across the top of the table are defined in Article 2 of the zoning bylaw and are listed in the planning board handout in your warrant packet. The following two rows on the graphic indicate the minimum lot size and frontage requirements for parcels within a given district. For example, the largest district in town, shown in light green on the map, is Single Residence B, or SRB, in the use table. This district requires that parcels have a minimum of 80,000 square feet and require 200 feet of frontage for development. The 8 types of uses listed in the middle of the table are separated into residential, accessory, animal-related, marine-related, medical, commercial, industrial, and miscellaneous uses as projected in this graphic. The uses are further described in the Article 5 use table beginning on page 9 of your warrant packet. In conclusion, the main purpose of this article revision is to add a use table to Article 5, and I must stress that this zoning bylaw amendment does not change any uses, districts, or requirements, but is rather intended to provide an ease-of-use tool for the bylaw.
Thank you, Ms. O'Grady. Do I have someone to move this for me? I don't know if Mr. O'Neill is here to move it or... Thank you. Second. Thank you for the second. Finance Committee recommendation.
600.
And the Select Board recommendation.
Select Board approves 5-0.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 13 that's before us? Are we ready to vote? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. In the back there, please.
Kathy Del Sordo, Precinct 5. In reviewing this, the definitions seem to be very old, perhaps, and need to be looked at and revised because many of the definitions currently don't make a lot of sense according to today's standards. So if that's something you're going to be doing, please let us know. Thank you.
The spring town meeting, for this point, we were just gathering all of the definitions together. We have begun working with Town Council Brian Cruz on that particular item.
Any further discussion on Article 13? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 13, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Article 13 passes at 7:45. Article 14. Citizens petition amendment to town bylaws. Do I have someone speaking on behalf of this petition? No one here to speak on behalf of this petition? Okay, Mr. Savastano, you had a couple comments on this?
Yes, as soon as I saw this, I had some grave concerns about its legality. The Select Board, as the executive branch, is authorized to engage in collective bargaining, and there are statutes to that effect. We cannot have a local bylaw which conflicts with the state statute. I actually found a case from the Supreme Judicial Court out of 1990, which specifically held in the manner that I was concerned about. The case was out of Rentham, and in 1987, Rentham Town Meeting required the Select Board in the town of Rentham to pay 99% of group life and health insurance. The Supreme Judicial Court said that town meeting, being the legislative branch, can accept the statute relating to the town contributing, and it can fund well, in our case, it'd be a Schedule A or through a separate warrant article, but it can fund the payment of the health insurance, but it cannot determine the contribution percentage. that belongs to the chief executive officer of the town, which in our case is the select board. So there's a case right on point. This warrant article is illegal, and I recommend that it be voted down.
Okay. Anyone, do I even have a motion on this article before do I have a motion on it? So I have a motion to indefinitely postpone. Do I have a second on indefinite postponement? Second. Okay, any discussion on indefinite postponement?
Right here. I have just a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Tattlebaum.
Speaking first for myself as a resident and a single select board member, I do applaud the spirit of what this article is trying to do. And speaking as a member of the select board, and I think we all stand together and that we've made a commitment to long-range planning, which this certainly includes. And our commitment is to deliver the next June town meeting a 5, 10, 50-year plan, which would include items like this, so that we can properly finance and properly take care of our employees in a way that we can afford, and also deal with the rather large infrastructure projects ahead of us. So I look forward to that for next town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion for indefinite postponement before us. Any discussion on indefinite postponement of Article 14? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of indefinite postponement, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The motion for indefinite postponement passes at 7:49. I would entertain a motion to dissolve. All in favor of dissolving town meeting, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Thank you. We are dissolved. Thank you, everyone.